I think that the scene with Arthur's supposed sister too is an interesting one.
Well, there's two of them. Is it Morgan or
Oh,
Morgos?
the older
Oh,
one.
Morgos. Okay.
Um, the scene where she's introduced as the red-haired woman, and she goes on in this sort of rant. I think that you were stealing from yourself and from Stardust Memories there, where you have her sort of uh, going that scene with Dory where it's fractal,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah. Yeah.
and I think that that's an interesting scene. It's also a steal from I think it turns out to be here where you have one of the sisters going on like that too, and then you have the fractured sentences
Yeah.
in the play.
Yeah, and that suggests that this is someone who's saying things that are not necessarily cohering, and that
I
that she.
also think that it's different than it turns out to be here in that it could be you meant when you mentioned that Bergmanian thing, it put me in the mind of that scene where she eventually turns to Arthur and she's talking to him, but you don't know that at first. And the interesting thing is that it almost comes off rehearsed. That it's like she's rehearsing her lines before she goes and talks to Arthur. That's something that could be used throughout the cycle.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. There are some threads that I'm going to leave open, just like I left open a lot of threads at the end of the Norwegian family. Most famously, probably the one with the super spy. The super spy's brother. If you remember in a Norwegian family, we get the tale of the super spy and his brother being killed by. I think it's by one of the. It might be by the mule of the Foundation, and then I do the whole Super 7 book, and we think we're going to get a resolution and find out what actually happened to the brother. But we don't, because the super spy, it turns out, doesn't really care about his brother. I mean, that's one of the great moments where we find out that that character really is an anti-hero, as the subtitle of that book is, because he's really not as caring as he makes out to be, or that he would be, and he's not as heroic. And so this is one of the things that you need to do in art is to sometimes set up expectations and don't meet them. Don't You don't have to. If you set up 10 expectations in a work, don't meet all 10. Leave two or three of them at least open, so that you don't want to leave all of them open, because then that's people will look at that as cop out. But don't answer all 10 of them, so to speak. And this one with King Arthur, because there's so many variant myths and tales and versions, it's the perfect thing to do this with, because you know um, and then you can make up your own myths. The whole Demodwine thing, you know. Uh, this is a good thing, because we know that he's not really the son of Uther Pendragon. He's not really a king. He's not really descended from kings. But we don't know. Is his tale of coming out of the caves with these two girls, is that real or not? He doesn't remember them. They claim they remember him, although from what we know, he would have been 6 or 7. Morgos maybe a couple of years older, 8 or 9. The younger sister maybe a year or two younger, 4 or 5 years old. So we don't know really if any of this is true, and we don't know if are the sisters conspiring together. And I may or may not use that in the whole Modred angle that will play out. But the good thing is, each of these plays will have little scenes that develop these characters. Modred, as I said, has a good scene in the second Gawain play, because he is ostensibly, even though he's not actually related, they assume he's a relation to Gawain and Agravain and Gaheris and Gareth, the sons of Lot. The sons of Lot dominate the second play that I'm writing, the sons of King Lot, and they have their own personal mythos and whatnot. And the thing that I just like and is really good about these plays is each of them is different. They take on different aspects of the Arthurian myth, but they take on different aspects of the human condition, and I do that so much better than other people, because other people would be stuck. They would be too tied to these myths. They don't explore. They don't push themselves. You have to push yourself. You can't ever rest on your laurels. I want to, if I die at the age of 95, I want to die writing something and maybe just finishing it and then keeling over, and that last play be
I was
okay.
telling Thomas that actually. I said, I bet when Dan is in the hospital bed and he's near death, that he'll say, "I can get one final line out."
Yeah, yeah. You have to live it to the fullest. Yeah.